Well, hey, y'all, I'm so excited to be here with you as we come to a conclusion in our Same Team series, where we have been learning what it looks like to have great relationships in our lives. And I think we all desire to have great relationships. You've likely experienced this. Great relationships can make your life feel great, whereas strained relationships can make your life feel miserable. We were created to be in relationship with one another. We were created by a relational God to be in relationship with both Him and one another. And so if we want to live out that unique part of our purpose, we need to learn how to do relationships really well. And the simplest and most profound way that I've ever been able to explain how good relationships should work is in the context of a team. Right, great teams, they work together and they win together. And whereas in our relationships, it's not always easy to figure out what the purpose or what the goal is of our relationships, it's very easy to define the goal of a team. Right, what does every single team want? To win. They do. They want to win together. Each individual member of the team understands that they have to work together if they want to win together. And I think that if we were to think about our relationships in the same way, we would see that we really do desire to function as a team. To realize that as individuals, the success of our team depends on our ability to work together as a team. Michael Jordan said this: "Talent wins games, but teamwork wins championships." I deeply desire championship level relationships in my life, and I hope you do too. As we kicked off this series 2 weeks ago, we talked about how to disagree with one another, how disagreements don't have to be something that tear us apart, but rather can be something that build our teams up and make them stronger. And then last week, we learned about how to apologize, how to get back on the same team, how to reconcile with one another so that we can work together, so that we can win together. If you happen to miss anything in the last 2 weeks, I encourage you to jump on any of our social media platforms, on YouTube or on our City Church app, where we've been putting extra resources that I think can be really helpful for you as you work to get on the same team in the relationships in your life. And so this week, as we conclude our series, I want us to talk about something else that can be really difficult for us as individuals. I want to talk about how we need to ask for help. And so I played a lot of sports growing up. I loved playing sports because I loved the team dynamics. I loved kind of the high pressure. I loved being able to rely on others and having others rely on me. And I think this is why I so enjoy being in relationships in my life, is because I love functioning as a team. And one of the many sports that I played growing up was volleyball. Now, let's be really clear. I was not a good volleyball player. All right, I was a very poor volleyball player. And so we think we have a picture. You can see how very skinny oh, there it is. There she is. I probably missed the ball. It just looks like a really great action shot. So I had a very short and uneventful volleyball career. But in my freshman year of high school, I decided I wanted to try out for the volleyball team. And whereas the other young women that I played with, they had grown up playing volleyball. Most of them had played club volleyball. They had played on various teams and gone to different camps and clinics. I hadn't. In fact, I made the team just kind of by the skin of my teeth, like barely made it. And so the first weeks of practice, I had a lot to learn. I had everything to learn, in fact. And I still remember the very first thing that I learned. This was it. All right, anybody who has played volleyball, you know what I'm talking about here, right? The very first thing you learn to do is yell, "Mine." Anytime a ball is coming your direction, anytime you are gonna hit it back, bump, set, or spike, you yell, "Mine," every single time. All right, go to a volleyball game or a set of games, you will hear this all over the place. Mine, 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 mine. This is what you do when you play volleyball. And so among other many things that I had to learn, this was one that set in very first thing. It creates so much clarity when you're playing together, because if two people are running towards a ball, looking up, and no one says "mine," they're gonna crash into each other. And also, probably more important to most coaches, is that if no one yells mine, all too often the ball will come down in between two players and they kind of look at each other like, well, I thought you were gonna get it. Like and it goes back and forth and who's to blame and all of those things. Saying mine when you're playing volleyball brings so much clarity and helps you function as a team. And so I remember one day at practice, we were playing a scrimmage. We were doing a 3-on-3 scrimmage. And at one point, a ball comes over and it's my responsibility. It's in my zone to hit back. But I very quickly realized I'm not going to be able to get there. So I said what made sense to me. I said, yours. It makes sense, right? If I say mine when it's mine, I should say yours when it's yours, right? And so my coach blows the whistle, and she calls me over. And with this quiet intensity, she said, "What did you say?" And I looked back as I shrunk, and I was like, I said yours? Second guessing every decision I had ever made in my short 14 years of life. This was intense. She said, "That's what I thought you said." It has been 20 years since that fateful moment, and my legs are still sore from the number of laps that I had to run. But the lesson set in, and it set in hard. You never yell yours. You never take something that is your responsibility and throw it on to someone else. And this is true in volleyball, but I think this important truth also it's set into my mind as an important life principle, is that when something belongs to us, we shouldn't take it and say yours. We shouldn't throw it on to someone else. We should never yell yours. But here's the problem. We can't always get to every ball. We can't. And so that same fateful day that I learned that you never yell yours, I also learned this important lesson. Whereas you should never say yours, you can say help. You can yell help. You can let your teammates know that you can't get there and that you need their help. Collectively, we are not great at asking for help. Or it's so easy to believe that it makes us weak, that it makes us feel like we're not up to the job. It can make us feel like we are ill-equipped or incompetent. We don't love the way that makes us feel. We don't like to feel like we're a burden, like we're unworthy, like we're annoying, like we're overly needy. And so often we avoid saying help when we need help because we don't want to be any of those things. But we can't get to every ball. And so what do we do? Today, I want to look at what the Apostle Paul had to say about asking for help and about giving help. And I want us to look at what he had to say so we can learn not only when we should say help, but how we should say help. And so let's first look at when we should take responsibility, when we should call out mine. Each one should test their own actions. Then they can take pride in themselves alone, without comparing themselves to someone else, for each one should carry their own load. So let's start here. Each one should test their own actions. And so what this is talking about here is that we should be constantly evaluating ourselves, evaluating our part of the team. We should take ownership of what's ours, testing that, evaluating if we are being a team player, because the team can only be as successful as the work that each of us put in as individuals. Then they can take pride in themselves alone. This isn't the kind of negative pride, I feel really big and like everyone else is worse than me. No, this is the kind of pride that comes with knowing that you did a really great job. If you're taking ownership and you're doing your best, you should be proud of yourself. If you are using the disagreements in your life to get on the same team and not tear your team apart, you should be proud of yourself. If you're laying down your pride and in humility going and apologizing to others, making things right, reconciling with your teammate, you should be proud of yourself. Put in the effort, test your own actions, and then be proud when you do a good job without comparing themselves to someone else. And so we should hold ourselves up, right? We should be doing our best, be proud of that, but we should also be careful not to compare ourselves to others. You can only control you. And so you shouldn't be taking the effort that you put in and comparing it to your teammates. You shouldn't be settling down to the lowest common denominator. You need to look at what you're doing. You are the only one you can control. You need to be looking at what you're doing and evaluating that, not comparing yourself to your teammates. For each one should carry their own load. All right, so load here. Let's think about that for a minute. A load is like a backpack. A load is something that is meant to be carried by a single person, right? We can't share a backpack. It would get really weird really quick, right? A load is something that we are meant to carry on our own. And so, ladies, let's get really real here for a minute. We will feel this more than anyone else. All right, we feel this in our bones, in our daily life. And every husband, boyfriend, every man in this room, every child in this room, guys, you need to hear this. We do not want to carry your stuff in our purses. Carry your own stuff. By a show of hands, all right, ladies, whether you have a bag with you or not, how many of you could find something that is not yours in a bag right now? Some of y'all are lying because I know there's someone else's stuff in your bag. This goes both ways though. I never carry a bag, so my husband's pockets are always full of my chapstick and other stuff. Ladies, this is why we love it when dresses have pockets, right? Like, it has pockets. Like, you have to say it, right? Because it's so important. But this verse isn't talking about purses and it's not talking about pockets. This verse is talking about the things that we are meant to carry and not to throw onto someone else. At work, it looks like doing your work and not expecting someone else to step in and take care of what is yours for you. In our homes, it looks like doing what we say that we are going to do and not expecting everyone else to clean up behind us or to take care of our messes or to fill in the gaps without that communication. That's not what that looks like. In our family, I see this so much with folks with aging parents that need help. And you have one sibling perhaps that's doing all of the work, carrying the load of everyone else. We need to carry our own load in the relationships in our families. We need to be able to carry those so we're not putting those on someone else. We need to carry our own personal responsibility. We need to be able to carry our own loads. But like we said before, we can't get to every ball. This is about the things that we're supposed to carry, but we can't get to every ball, all right? So there are so many things we should say mine about, but there are also moments where we need to say help, because you can't always get there. And so let's look at what Paul had to say about that. He said, carry each other's burdens, and in this way, you will fulfill the law of Christ. Let's start here with the law of Christ. And so Jesus, when he was asked what the most important law was, he went and he broke all of the law down to a single command. He said, love God, and in the same way, love one another. This is the law of Christ. The law had so many things in it. It touched every aspect of life for the Jewish people. It had to do with the food that they ate. It had to do with their behavior, how they treated one another, how they rested in their rhythms of life. The law touched on every single component of life. And Jesus takes all of that and he sums it up into a single command: love God and love one another. And so if we want to live out the law of Christ, we have to learn to carry each other's burdens. Now, Paul, as he puts these two statements about loads and burdens next to each other in Scripture, I think he's trying to make a distinction, because the word load and the word burden are two very different words. We are to carry our own load. We are to carry each other's burdens. And so, like I said before, a load is like a backpack. It is something that you are meant to carry by yourself. It is yours. It is your responsibility to carry that. A burden is something you cannot carry by yourself. It's as if this TV right here didn't have wheels on it, and I decided I was going to try to pick it up by myself. Not only is this unsafe for me and I'd get a hernia, it is also unsafe for the TV, anybody I drop it on. This would be a burden. This is not something that one person is meant to carry on their own. That is the difference between a load and a burden. A load is when you are carrying around what is yours to carry. A burden is when you are carrying around everyone else's load. A load is when you are taking the time and the energy and the effort to care for your own mental health, as we all should. A burden is when we're trying to process through trauma, or we have that mental breakdown. It's something that we really shouldn't be trying to carry on our own. A load is caring for our own physical health. A burden is when we go and we sit in front of the doctor and we get a really difficult diagnosis. It's something that we shouldn't be trying to carry on our own. For a young person, studying, that's a load that they're meant to carry, but a burden is when they're faced with a serious learning disability that they need help, that they need help adapting and figuring out what life looks like for them to learn. All right, a load is working your 9 to 5. A burden is when we are constantly having to carry everyone else's work, having to meet unreasonable deadlines. It's far more than we can handle on our own. There is a distinct difference between a load and a burden. We are to carry our own loads, but we are to help each other carry our burdens. There is a distinct difference. And helping each other carry our burdens is part of our God-given purpose. It's how we live out the law of Christ. It's how we love God and love one another as we come alongside each other and we help carry each other's burdens. And we also allow others to help us carry our burdens too. Dr. Brené Brown is a social scientist, somebody who I look up to a great deal. And she recently did an interview where she had something really awesome to say about this. She talked about how relationships, so often the way that we talk about them is that relationships are 50-50. Like, you do your part, I do my part, there's no crossover, this isn't how this works. And she says that's just not how it can work. Because sometimes you are gonna walk into the house or walk into your work or walk into your school, and what you're gonna have to give is 20, not 50, 20. That's all you have to give at that moment. And that's the moment that you look at your teammate and you tell them that. You tell them the kinds of burdens that you are carrying. And they go, you know what? I got you. I can do 80. In the same way, you may walk in and go, you know what? I only have 20 to give today. And they may go, you know what? I think I only have 15. And that happens, and that's okay. Those are the moments we need to learn to give each other grace. But this is what great teams do for each other, is they fill in the gaps for one another. They help carry each other's burdens. That's how great teams work together. They carry their loads because they understand what their role is. They understand they need to play their role to work together and to win together, but they also help fill the gaps. They come running when someone says help. Some of us aren't great at asking for help. Some of us aren't great at offering help. I think I fall in both of these categories at one day and then the next. And so it's so easy to fool ourselves into believing that we don't need help or we don't need to offer someone else help, right? They did this to themselves. They need to figure it out. And Paul had something really significant to say about this part of this. If anyone thinks they are something when they are not, they deceive themselves. They deceive themselves, not anyone else. They deceive themselves. If you have fooled yourself into believing that you do not need help, you are only deceiving yourself. If you believe that you are too good, too busy, too whatever to offer someone else help, you are only deceiving yourself. Self-deception and pride are something that get in the way of great relationships constantly. All right, self-deception and pride will 100% keep you from getting on the same team, from working together, from winning together. Pride and self-deception will keep you from having great relationships, and you are only deceiving yourself. I'm not gonna help them. They shouldn't have gotten themselves into that situation. They need to figure it out on their own. I don't have the time, the energy, the effort to pay attention to that right now. or I don't need to ask for help because I can do it better anyway. I don't need to ask for help because our pride kicks in. I don't need to ask for help because I want to see myself as strong and independent and not needing anything from anyone else. And we are only deceiving ourselves when we find ourselves believing that we are too good to help or too good to receive or ask for help. And our teams will suffer because of it. Our relationships will suffer because of it. And so really practically, I want to talk about what this looks like for us today. Because we can learn so much, but if what we learn doesn't move from our head to our hearts and from our hearts to our hands and our feet, it doesn't do us any good. And so we need to figure out what it tangibly looks like to help and to ask for help if we want to have great relationships, if we want to be on the same team so we can work together and so we can win together. So really practically first, I want to talk about how we need to help ourselves. Right? Helping ourselves, it's actually really simple. Helping ourselves has to do with very clear boundaries. Helping ourselves means that we need to have a clear and distinct understanding of what is ours and what is not ours. Helping ourselves is drawing that distinct line between what is ours and what is not ours. And when we do this, it enables us to not only receive help, but to offer help to one another. And I'll explain that in a minute. But that is how we care for ourselves. We draw that clear and distinct boundary of what it is to carry our own loads. And when we don't draw that line, what we do is we take on everyone else's loads, and then they become our burdens. No, we need to understand what is ours to carry and what is not ours to carry. We need to understand our distinct role on our team. That is so key if we want to be able to help others. And so there's a really interesting balance when it comes to helping others, because it takes so much communication. And if we're not communicating when we try to help others, it's so easy to take on someone else's load. This is why we have to have those distinct lines if we want to learn to help one another. And we have to communicate about it. We need to ask questions. Now, I understand that sometimes a question's not gonna be practical. Like when you see your teammate really struggling, sometimes we just have to hustle and not ask questions. When we see our spouses having a really difficult time at work or personally, it's okay for us to step in and fill the gap. When they have 20, we do 80, that's okay. When we see a friend struggling and we volunteer to go pick up their kids from school, when our kids are having a hard time at school and we decide that we're gonna take care of some of their responsibilities so that they can go and take care of other things, that's all awesome and it's all being considerate. But you have to understand where the line is so that what you're doing is helping someone and not just taking on a burden that is not yours to carry. In other instances, it is so important that we ask questions. Like, I see that you're really struggling. How can I help? I see that this is really bothering you. Is there anything that I can do? Hey, I know you guys are having a tough time. Can I bring a meal over? Can I pick up the kids from school? Can I help clean? What can I do? When we want to help others, the best thing to do is to ask questions. When we see that our teammates are struggling, we need to ask questions. Because if our teammate is struggling, if they are not at 100%, our team cannot work together and our team cannot win together. We have to fill those gaps. But we need to ask questions first. We need to figure out what's ours and what's theirs. Helping someone is part of our God-given purpose. Helping someone is a gift. And when the lines get blurry, it's not a gift. It's just us taking on other people's stuff. We have to understand where the line is so that when we do help, it is a gift that someone else can receive. And last, we need to understand how to ask for help. When we should yell help, when we should stop trying to yell mine, when we should stop trying to get to every ball, and we should say help. Asking for help can so easily make us feel weak, ill-equipped, like a burden. I've felt all of those things probably in rotation, even in the last week, we all do. But giving our teammates the opportunity to help us is so significant. Because if it is part of our God-given purpose to love one another the same way that Jesus loved us, it is also part of their purpose to be able to help us when we are in need. We are not going to be good teammates if we don't also allow someone else to help us. All right? Yelling yours is not a gift. We have to learn to accept help. In every other circumstance, we can see this as a gift, but so often when it's us, we see it as weakness, and we have to learn the difference. We have to learn how to let others carry our burdens while simultaneously understanding that we are not a burden. You cannot get to every bowl. You are going to have to yell, help. And when our teammate does yell help, or when we yell help, we need to have the expectation that somebody's gonna hustle to get there. Somebody's gonna hustle to help us carry those burdens. It is so key and critical if we want to get on the same team. Live your purpose by helping others, and let them live their purpose by helping you. This is how good teams work together. This is how good teams win together. This is why here at City Church, we talk so much about finding freedom together. Because we understand that it is together that we find freedom from life's burden. It is together that we can find freedom, that we can learn to work together, and we can learn to live together. We live in a burned out world filled with busyness and screens, the world telling us that we need to have it all together or look out for number one. We're taught and brainwashed to believe that self-reliance is the greatest strength that we can ever have, and nothing could be further from the truth. Followers of Jesus, we are called to carry each other's burdens. We are called to love one another. We have to learn to help and receive help. We aren't meant to live that way in just the spiral of busyness. We were built to be on teams together and on the same team. And so right now, I want you to think about your life today. All your teammates that you have, your work environments, your home environments, at school, in your community, with your friends. Is there someone in your life right now who you know is carrying a burden that is too heavy? Someone that is carrying a burden, someone who is carrying something that should not be carried by one person. If you know someone like that in your life today, you need to step in. You need to hustle over there. Ask questions. Don't just run in and start carrying things for other people. When they ask questions, can I help? Can I help shoulder this from you? Where can I step in? When we see that our teammates are struggling, we need to hustle over and we need to help. Who is that person in your life today, and how can you show up and help them? In the same way, what is a burden that you are carrying today? What is it that's keeping you up all night? What is it that you get uncomfortable talking about whenever it comes up, or that gives you anxiety? What is a burden that you are carrying today? You are not meant to carry those burdens alone. You are not called to lift more than what it is that you can carry. You need to ask for help. Think about the teammates in your life. Who do you know will show up? Who do you know will hustle to you if you yell help? If that's you today, if you're carrying that burden, right, send that text and ask them to meet you for coffee. Ask for that favor that you need. Ask others, be vulnerable, and tell them how you're struggling so that your teammates can get on your team, so that you can work together, so you can win together. Where in your life do you need to offer help today? And where in your life do you need to ask for help for today? Collectively, this is our purpose, to help one another and to receive help. Let's be great teammates, and let's do that together. Y'all, imagine a world where we got really good at this. where we got good at being on the same team, at working together and at winning together, of showing up to help one another, of being vulnerable enough to ask for help, it would completely change our world. It would change City Church. It would change our church. It would change the community around us. It would change our workplaces. It would change our school as people saw us live out what Jesus taught us to do, as people see us live out loving God and loving one another by being teammates, by working together so that we can win together. We were created by a relational God to be in relationship with him and with one another. And so we need to learn to do that well. Talent wins games. Teamwork wins championships. Will you pray with me? So God, we thank you for the way that you created us, that you created us with teammates, that you created us where we would have others to fill in the gaps when we are burdened, God. That we would have you, Father, when we are burdened, and that we do not have to do any of this alone. And so right now, God, whatever the burdens that each of us are carrying, I pray that you would highlight those in our lives, and you would also show us who we can ask help from, and help us to vulnerably step forward and to say, I need help. I can't carry this on my own. Can you help in? Can you step in? Can you help me? Can you love me in this way? In the same way, Father, I ask that you would highlight someone in our lives that we need to step in and help, that we need to be on the same team as. And I pray that you would give us the boldness to go to them and ask if we can help. God, thank you so much that we can get so much fulfillment from the relationships in our lives, from the teammates that you have blessed us with, God. And so help us to steward that so well. It's in your name that we pray. Amen.